Hey guys, there's been kind of a lot of confusion going on as to whether Jesus was hung on a tree or died on a cross. And I know that might sound ridiculous to you, but let's look at the King James Bible. In the book of Acts, verse 30, the God of our fathers raised up Jesus, whom he slew and hanged on a tree. Acts 10 and 39, and we are witnesses of all things which he did both in the land of the Jews and in Jerusalem, whom they slew and hanged on a tree. Acts 13:29. And when they had fulfilled all that was written of him, they took him down from the tree and laid him on a sepulchre. And First Peter, second chapter, verse 24, who is a who is who his own self bare our sins and his own body on the tree, that we being dead to sin should live unto righteousness, and by whose stripes ye are healed. So all these say down from a tree, and then you say, oh well, Christ hung from a tree, and that's that. But then you look at all the other times it says he comes down from the cross. Matthew 27, and let him now come down from the cross. Come down from the cross in Mark 15. Descend now from the cross. Luke 23, and on him laid the cross. And John 19:19, and put it on the cross. So when we look into the actual Greek words here, cross is staros usually, and then tree is kulon or xulon, which is also staves. So I don't have a clear answer for you, but what's interesting is that if you read this stuff, it says the shape of the two-beamed cross had its origins in ancient Chaldea, which is Babylon, and was used as a symbol for the god Tammuz, being in the shape of the mystic Tau, the initial of his name, in that country and in adjacent lands, including Egypt. By the middle of the 3rd century AD, the churches had neither departed from or had travestied certain doctrines of the Christian faith. In order to increase the prestige of the apostate ecclesiastical system, pagans were received into the churches apart from the regeneration by faith, and were permitted largely to retain their pagan signs and symbols. Hence, the tau, or T, in its most frequent form, with the crosspiece lowered, was adopted to stand for the cross of Christ. The Expository Dictionary of New Testament Words by Vine. So the cross is not an old symbol. There's several varieties of the cross still in vogue as national and ecclesiastical emblems. There's not amongst them the existence of which may not be traced to the remotest antiquity. They were the common property of the Eastern nations. In the triad of the three Egyptian gods, each holds a sacred tau, or the cross, as the symbol of life and immortality. Um, This is even by Joseph Sayce, who wrote Gospel in the Stars, of the Stars, which showed the constellations, told the story of the Bible. But anyway, it's uh, here. Let's just read this. The symbol of the cross originated as part of an ancient Egyptian initiatory rite, and eventually found its way into Christianity. The church stated that in its history there is no proof of the use of a cross until much later than the 6th century. It is recorded in Christian archives that the general use of the crucifix was ratified at the Sixth Ecumenical Council in 680. The council decreed that the figure of a man fastened to a cross be now adopted, and the new church logo was later confirmed by Emperor Hadrian I, 772. About a century later, the first pictures of Jesus standing against a cross slowly started to appear. I'm not saying it's all pagan, the cross or whatever, but I'm saying we should be aware of how deep the deception really goes. And then when it talks about, I looked up nailed, and you don't nail someone to a tree. People say, oh, well, he hung, but then he's nailed to a cross. They nailed him to a cross again in Luke. That's John, then Luke, then Galatians, for Christ I am nailed to the cross. So, I mean, there's obviously a lot of references to being nailed to a cross. So when it talks about they slew him and hung him on a tree, um, a lot of people think, oh well, he was hung like the blacks were, and that Jesus is actually black, and that's what the white man is trying to hide. It's not that simple to me. Jesus was Middle Eastern. He's in the Middle East. Okay. Um, that said, I mean Moses was in Egypt, but he was also adopted by the pharaohs. He wasn't of the pharaoh's blood. But anyway, Um, we don't know if it's the tree or the cross, and even when we look in the Greek, it'll say Staros sometimes, and it'll say Xulon some other times. So just think for yourself, and see what you can find out about it later.